All right. I'm Tyler Hudson, licensed professional counselor, Army veteran, and doctoral graduate associate for the Suicide Prevention Program. I'm here with retired Air Force Colonel Kevin Cullen, who's the Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Military and Veteran Services at OSU. Thank you for your time. I know it's precious, and there's not a lot of it to go around, so we're grateful for you to join us today.
You're welcome, Tyler. And this is as important topic as any. So I'm happy to spend it with you.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard a little bit, of your background, military, and then at OSU. But maybe for the sake of those who aren't familiar with what you've done in the Air Force or what you're doing at OSU, would you fill us in on what military career is like, and then what brought you to OSU, and what you've been doing since?
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh wow.
Yeah, we only have an hour as well, sir. I got you.
We'll have an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep the background to 59 minutes. Served in the Air Force for 28 years, active duty. Graduated from the United States Air Force Academy. I was a security forces officer or military policeman by trade. Been a commander a lot of times, 8 times throughout my Air Force career. About half of my career, about 14 years or so, was in the nuclear enterprise. So certainly a high risk, tough place to live and work every day. Spent about 5 years deployed, twice to Iraq, once to Afghanistan, once to Egypt, once to Saudi Arabia, and some others. The other things that might be interesting from a military standpoint, most of my schooling was done with the United States Army or in the joint service world. So had an opportunity to learn a lot from the other services and quite honestly, the other federal agencies of the United States government. And then I kind of transitioned out of security forces into a more leadership role in the Air Force as a group commander, wing commander over in the United Kingdom. And then my last assignment was here. Last assignment on active duty was here at Ohio State University, teaching Air Force ROTC. So it's kind of a little bit of the military background, and loved every minute of it. My wife was enlisted, was active duty, was in the reserves, and now she's in the National Guard. And my son's an active duty airman, and soon to be in the Space Force, serving out in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
No kidding.
We love the United States military, and we would all do it again in a second.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for all you've done and are doing now for our students on campus. So when did you officially retire?
Yep. So retired during COVID. So I know we'll kind of get into that when we talk about transitioning to the civilian life. But my last day in the office, so to speak, was the last day of classes this spring semester, this past spring semester. Okay. So towards the end of March, finished up teaching the ROTC cadets. And we went into final exams and the virtual commencement. And really I retired immediately at that point. There was some plans to have a joint retirement high school graduation ceremony with my daughter because she was a senior at the time. We had family coming in for all that from Minnesota, Wisconsin, California, Florida, and other places. But obviously, because of COVID, we canceled all of that. That was right.
I'm sorry.
So relatively recent retirement from the Air Force.
Yeah, and now with MVS, other than providing just general leadership for that, are there specifics that would be helpful to point out, or that are highlights of that role for you?
Yeah, sure. And if you don't mind, Tyler, I want to maybe add a thing or two about kind of my transition to the civilian. And granted, take it for what it's worth, because this happened during COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you would think a 28-year active duty individual would have a relatively easy transition. But I would offer that all of our transitions, COVID or not, are difficult. The going through TAPS, trying to figure out what you're going to do for the next chapter in your life. Where are you going to live? Taking care of your family. We had a daughter who was transitioning from high school to college. Wife was moving from one job to another. Transition. I watched a lot of military members from all services transition over the years, and I didn't really think about it until it got close for me. Maybe you had a similar experience, and then it happened, and it's partially because of COVID. But I'll tell you that from my experience, everything was at least a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. So that's kind of my transition experience. Now, it ended in a great place. I was fortunate enough to stay on at Ohio State University and essentially move across the street from ROTC to the Office of Military and Veteran Services. I couldn't think of a better landing spot to be, quite honestly, where we get to continue to work with our military, veteran, and family member community, continue to work with our ROTC cadets and midshipmen, and really just make a difference in their lives as they pursue higher education and career changes and everything that comes with those veterans transitioning as well. Yeah.
Well, it's been great to have meetings and work with you so far. It's been exciting to look at different initiatives with suicide prevention program in particular. So grateful for that. Do you still get the opportunity to teach? Not that you have the margin for it. Are you still teaching at all?
I do, and that's the best part. It's the best part of the job. It was the best part of the ROTC job was teaching and spend kind of that one-on-one time. Maybe not one-on-one, but the small classroom time with cadets. And I was fortunate enough to link up with the College of John Glenn, Public Affairs. I teach an Undersecretary of Defense sponsored course in the John Glenn College. It's often called Hacking for Defense. We changed the name of it here to Rapid Innovation for Public Impact. But all that means is we use multidisciplinary student teams from across the university to solve real world problems. It could be a problem with the environment. Could be a problem, for example, we're working on right now with gerrymandering in the state of Ohio. Could be a problem with human trafficking. We've worked on problems for the Ohio Air and Army National Guard, the Air Force Research Lab, Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, and NASA, and many other agencies. So the students love the class because it allows them to spend a whole semester working a problem for real that has real impact in real people's lives. So
sounds rewarding.
Definitely enjoy that part of the job.
Yeah, Hacking for Defense has a different flavor to it than the title that it's changed to, I think.
I often say that, but most people think it might have to do with computer hacking. Has nothing to do with that.
That's where my brain went.
In other places, you may have heard, if I was to say hacking for diplomacy or hacking for the environment or hacking for nonprofit organizations, it's just a term where we're taking real world problems from those different kind of sects, those different agencies in society, and working on them and seeing if our multidisciplinary student teams can make an impact.
Got it. That sounds exciting. That sounds exciting. Um, I was going to ask about what was your transition like? You referred to it already a little bit, but it seems like it is somewhat ongoing, and it sounds like it was quite abrupt anyway due to COVID and other factors. The everything being a little bit more difficult experience that you've had. Is that something you've heard from other people as well as they transitioned out? And is there any difference that you can tell between people who had, I did 4 years and was out, versus, somebody in for 3 decades?
That's a great question. And I don't know if there is an answer. I think it's highly personable. I think it's highly case by case, and what that individual's service was like, and what that individual's, perhaps their family situation is like, and where they're choosing to go after their service. It was much harder than I thought. It was abrupt, like you said, but it was much harder than I thought. But at the same time, putting it into the big perspective of things, COVID shutdowns, economic shutdowns, job loss and unemployment, rampant across the country and around the world. We found ourselves very fortunate to have a network, in the military and veteran community, that we could communicate with, a network that we could reach out to others who have gone through it, those who have gone before us, people with special skills like yourself, and I don't want to underestimate the impact on the family, because there was certainly an impact on the family as well. It's a big transition for everybody, and like I said, it was harder, and still is harder than I thought it would be. Sure.
I don't know where your kids lined up in your career and deployments and moves and things like that, but I think it wasn't until college that I realized it wasn't normal to have moved, 5 times before you were 18. So my dad was a career Coast Guard, retired Coast Guard Academy officer, 30 years. And the thing he talks about a lot of help that he received, TAPS you mentioned, and assistance as he was getting ready to retire. But the main takeaway that he seemed to get was, don't do it. As they talked about, health benefits or retirement or pension or things like that. He said, you're not going to find, that's what they kept drilling into him, you're not going to find it, the civilian equivalent. So a huge transition for him, a huge transition for us as the kiddos too. But you speaking to the family, consideration, I lived that firsthand. All your kids, it sounds like they were out of high school or just about out of high school when you retired?
Yeah, out of high school. Yeah, exactly. It just happened to work that our daughter was a senior in high school this last year, which kind of coincided with our last year in the military. But because you've gone through it, and you've also probably seen others and helped others transition as well. There's a lot of programs for the military member as they're leaving service. And quite honestly, there's a lot of programs for veterans after their service. But there's not a lot of programs for family members. And while we always try to look at those aspects of it, that's something that I think is certainly an area that we need to keep paying attention to.
Yeah, that's been a conversation you and I have had offline or at a different time, but there are a ton of resources available to veterans, and some of the shared interests that you and I have had that I'm having, academically now, and even looking at through the lens of a dissertation, hopefully, at what are the barriers to help seeking and to actually utilizing some of those resources that are made abundant. But for the family members, that's a great point. anyway.
I would, Tyler, if I could please add, you're talking about barriers. So, I would offer that often the first barrier is not even knowing about the resources. And again, I'm kind of fortunate in my new job where, there was a formal onboarding program and there's a list of places, go contact all these agencies, some internal to the university, many external to the university, introduce yourself and figure out, how you all tie in for military and veteran student success. And quite honestly, what I've learned has been shockingly good, in that there's so many agencies that exist to help veterans and military students and family members. But the part that's also equally shocking, at least to me, is even after 28 years of active duty service, I had no idea of many of them that exist and what they do. So I'm still learning that in my new job. And, for example, Franklin County Veterans Services Commission has incredible capability. I've lived here for 3 years and I didn't even know what they did at all. So that's just an example.
A lot more resources than just like 5% off at Cabela's, right? So
yes.
Yeah, and here's as a quick plug, maybe we'll include some links below to MVS website and the Suicide Prevention Program website, where a lot of those resources are spelled out, and we'll provide direct links to those. But I guess it's a good problem to have in some ways, that there are so many resources available that even after a 3-decade career, you could still be learning about more. One of the benefits, a happy one I just saw, was National Park Service just made all access free for veterans and active duty. So I'm pretty jazzed about that. Whenever we can travel again, that is. So.
Yeah, my sister sent that to me too.
Did you? Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you bringing up that barrier, because I in the literature on help seeking, there's a lot of talk about, generally they wouldn't use this term, but a lot of talk about maybe ego-like barriers, that it's bravado, it's rigid ideas of what we should be like or not be like. But I find as well that a lot of those initial barriers are quite subtle or even benevolent. I've heard quite a few people say things along the lines of, I don't want other people to worry about me, or I am the source of help for a lot of other people around me, and if I'm not okay, how can I help them? But I'm related to some of the unique barriers that veterans face, as you are well aware. You have to go through basic training or very minimal training in the military to learn and know that you get infused with a sense of grit and resilience and tenacity. And the Army values, one of them is never quitting. It's as instilled as it can get in the DNA of a soldier and airmen and Marines and Coast Guards men and women and all the other branches. I think that presents kind of a barrier, though, because when we maybe hit a circumstance where we don't know how to navigate it, maybe the initial inclination is just to lower the shoulder or rub some dirt in it or drink more water or whatever it was that we heard. So as a veteran yourself and as an officer in particular, how did you navigate that space between grit and then asking for for help for yourself or for your teams when they were seeking help or needed to seek help?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, so nothing's really changed from my time on active duty and now my time in this new job. And I'll give you an example in a minute. But what I've seen is that no one crosses the finish line alone. And whether that's in race or their military career or their pursuit of higher education or in life, nobody crosses the finish line alone. And so, we often talk about, well, in higher education, we talk about wellness, but in our military lives, we talk about maybe comprehensive fitness, or comprehensive soldier fitness, or comprehensive airman fitness, and there's lots of pillars to that. Ohio State has, I think, 11 pillars of their wellness dimensions, or 11 dimensions to wellness. And as you know, you spend a lot of time helping people. When an individual comes to you for help, or you're able to maybe connect with an individual and they feel comfortable enough to disclose things to you, it's because they trust you. So I think that the first part is, one of the many barriers to anybody receiving help from anywhere is you have to have a sense of trust in wherever you're going and whoever you're seeing. So developing those relationships are important. But along the same lines, though, what I've seen in helping others is that it's generally not one specific thing. As you know, life is tough. Life can be wicked, and our problems can be intertwined. And when you start to peel back those layers, of areas of need, you start to find out that there might be multiple things, and
Sure.
And that happens even here in my new job. We might have a veteran student contact us or walk in, and they're looking for assistance on a degree plan or financial aid or whatever the case may be. But after spending just a little bit of time with that individual, we find out, they're homeless, they're living out of their car, they don't know where they're going to get their next meal from. And so it's so much more than, hey, what classes are you going to sign up for next semester?
Sure.
And so that's kind of what I've seen in, over my 28 years, but also what I've seen in just a few short months here in military and veteran services. But I am, one other thing you said, I am convinced I've also seen the goodness that veterans bring this university. Veteran students, they bring a whole lot of diversity. As you know, our average veteran student's a little bit older than your typical, first or second year student. They often are married, might have children, have already had a career or two, lived in other parts of the world.
Sure.
And as they come to Ohio State University, they bring a whole lot of diversity in every aspect. But they also bring leadership, which is equally important. And leadership is really nothing more than serving others, right? It's kind of the definition of a leadership. And our military and veteran students just naturally know how to do this because they've learned it and done it over the years. And then, the last thing that our students bring, quite honestly, and you mentioned it's resiliency. Times are tough. 2020 has been a tough year with COVID and politics and everything else. Our military and veteran students bring a level of diverse resiliency that not only helps them, but we see them helping other students around the university.
Yeah, that's infectious, I think, to see people experiencing the same set of circumstances and navigating them. I think it's hope instilling. So I couldn't agree more. And it's encouraging to witness and much needed, I think, right now. So with specific concerns like that people might be facing, how would we talk about maybe like a healthy level of self-reliance? I sometimes think about my two boys. They're tater tots, they're 3 and 1. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how to model this is a good time to ask for help. And at the same time, don't want to raise two very utterly dependent individuals who aren't capable of accomplishing things themselves. So I haven't thought through an answer, but but it feels very nuanced and situational to say, hey, this is one of those situations where we got to dig in and we got to push on. And you actually don't need my help for this. Maybe you need my help to show you how to do it, but I'm not going to do this for you. You need to learn how to do this. It feels very situational. And so what I haven't distilled is kind of a hard and fast rule yet. But I'm wondering if someone who has raised 2 children and who has had a much longer career than me has figured out how to navigate that himself.
That's well, you said it better than I could, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of similarities between being a parent and being a supervisor in the military, and being a manager in a at a university. You care for everybody equally. You try to treat them all with respect. You try to establish relationships. You try to get them to trust you. And then if you want to take it into the classroom, often the best response to a student or perhaps your children is to answer a question with a question, or to tell them a story of something in your background, something in your experience that might help teach them a point that doesn't directly answer what they're asking you for. They're always looking for a shortcut, right? But hopefully they might remember, the main point of the story, and it might be something useful for them later on. But I definitely don't have all the answers on that one, for sure.
No, I like that response. There's an element of equipping and teaching people how to fish instead of giving them a fish, it seems. So I like that a lot. You mentioned it once already, and in other conversations we've had as well, I've heard you talk about mental fitness quite frequently. I'm curious what the significance of that is for you, or if you find any strong meaning in thinking about it as mental fitness instead of mental health or something like that. And there might not be.
No, that's a great question, and kind of talked about it a little bit already. But so mental fitness is so words matter, right? And right. I think research has shown that words matter, particularly when it comes to this area. But mental fitness is kind of a subset of a broader, just an overall individual's fitness or an individual wellness, if you will. A 4-legged stool is stronger than a 3-legged stool or a 2-legged stool or a 1-legged stool. And so when I think about overall fitness, I think of, there's obviously the physical component piece to it. There's a mental piece to it, and no doubt. And in many cases, that's the most important piece. That at the university, we see there's a social element to that, and quite honestly, with our children, there's a social element to that as well. Many folks believe that there's a spiritual element to overall fitness. And when we say spiritual, we're not necessarily talking about religion. It could be for that particular individual. But to somebody else, a spiritual fitness might come from painting, or from riding a motorcycle through the mountains, or from walking on a trail through the woods and looking at birds and flowers and things. So there can be a financial piece to wellness and fitness. And so, but from the mental side, I think what I would highlight is that, to me, this is not just a pillar that kind of stands with the other pillars. I look at it more as a kind of a foundation that runs across, maybe underneath and below, that runs across all those other pillars of fitness. It's incredibly important. And as you know, every individual handles things. It could be the same exact circumstance, but could handle things dramatically different than other individuals.
Sure. I like how you phrase that. I like the idea of mental fitness. I think doesn't need to be, but there's often a stigma associated with mental health and shrinks and mental health professionals and all that. But I like the idea of mental fitness. In a lot of instances, that's really what we're all after. Call it mental health, call it mental wellness, call it well-being, call it mental fitness. We're talking about a very similar thing. I also like how you've framed it as not just this siloed part of who we are. We have our physical fitness, our relational fitness, our nutritional fitness, and then our mental fitness, but maybe as the undercurrent or supportive kind of foundation for all the others. I think the preeminence is well deserved.
You just think Tyler, that so this is often the example. You probably use it. I use it as well. So many veterans, military members, they exercise their physical fitness regularly, maybe every day, maybe every other day. And a lot of people also who aren't in the military like to see the benefits of physical fitness. But many of us, when we get a chance, we're probably pretty good at the social fitness side of things as well. Even for introverts, right? Those are really rewarding opportunities, whether you're a student living in the residence hall or a family member across the country. So we probably exercise our social fitness frequently. How often do you and actually, let me talk about the spiritual fitness. For those who are spiritual, let's just say it's somebody who attends a church in the local community. Often they exercise their spiritual fitness once a week or so,
sure,
or maybe a handful of times a year. And those are all incredibly important. But how often do you exercise your mental fitness, and what does it mean to exercise your mental fitness? I think those kind of gets back to some of your previous questions on barriers and why people seek help or don't seek help. But I would offer that exercising your mental fitness is just as important, if not more important, than the other pillars. And those who are most successful in life are ones that have balance amongst all those pillars, those areas.
I like that. A quick aside and story. When I was applying for OSU and the PhD program in counselor ed, we had to take the GRE, which I hadn't. I had to study for that and prep for that. I hadn't done math in 10 years. I was doing theology and philosophy and mental health, and so I got a tutor to help me. And this tutor was a math whiz, as you can imagine. And he said, people who are good at math do mental math all day long. They look at the tiles and count them and then divide them by the number of kids they have. And then they sit at a stoplight and count how many, that kind of thing. And I then realized, I don't think I'll ever be good at math because I just don't do that. But an exercise kind of for my mental fitness is to do, instead of mental math, like mental cognitive work. And thinking about how can I get really upset about this situation, or what's another perspective that I could look at from here. And I think it's vital. Counselors can help people do that. Mental health professionals can help people do that. The military can help people do that, to say how can we reframe this set of circumstances. And so I like the idea of regular, kind of routine, regimented fitness plans. And at the same time, I think there's a lot of value for even kind of reactive in the moment mental math equivalent of doing that cognitive fitness, mental fitness.
Well, if by virtue, if you're thinking about what is my mental fitness plan, you're probably already doing pretty well, right? That's a good step. That's a positive step. And again, to each individual, it's different. Just like spiritual fitness is different. To each mental fitness is different.
I think that's really important for people to hear, because I think that there are a lot of understandable assumptions about what counseling is going to look like, and that's not for everybody, and that's okay. And or what spiritual wellness is going to look like, and we react to that because we assume that it's or it's even delivered and kind of advertised as kind of a one size fits all approach. So I think the relative nature of all that's really important to highlight. I appreciate you saying that. A lot.
Another example is, you could look at a marathoner, somebody who runs, hundreds of miles, or a bodybuilder. Both individuals are incredibly physically fit, right? But from a mental fitness standpoint, maybe one person likes to see a chaplain, and talk to those individuals, or maybe another person prefers counseling, or you name it. Again, it could be something that the university provides. It could be something that the VA provides.
Sure.
It is definitely not a one size fits all solution.
Sure.
Just like physical fitness isn't as well.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. I'm interested in maybe a way of kind of summarizing or putting a bow on this conversation after we talk about mental fitness. For the veteran on campus or military affiliated student who's struggling, and we know how many ways people could be struggling right now in any way, but might be hesitant for whatever their reason is to seek help, either at OSU in whatever form that might be, or off campus. I'm curious what you'd tell them if you had a one-on-one with them, or if you could look them in the eye and respond to that hesitance.
Yeah, I mean that's the $1 million question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first thing I would say is if you don't know where else you can go, and if you feel comfortable, I'd love to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if that doesn't work for you, just know that there's so many organizations, both at the university and outside the university, that have a myriad of things and programs that can help. The first, it's hard taking that first step, right? It really is. It's hard. It's hard for me to hit the retirement button in the system, right? It's hard to take that step. But find somebody you trust. Hopefully there is somebody there with you. And just earlier today, I had 2 students contact me and say, "Hey, can you come to campus to help?" And I immediately said, "Yeah, of course, I'm on my way." So when you find that person you trust, they can help find the right solution for you, because like we were talking about, it's different for everyone.
Sure.
And there's primary causes and underlying causes and other things. And so Ohio State's an incredible university with so many amazing offices and programs that can help veteran students, military, and family members. But likewise, that might not be the fit for you. It might be the VA. It might be a private practice. It might be, a religious leader. And again, but have somebody you trust. Have that hard conversation, and then be open-minded, and have a open mind in terms of moving forward and getting the help you need.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of the people who might be listening to this or will listen to this might be that actual trusted individual. So I think
exactly.
Everybody, encourage that trusted individual not to be afraid to ask too. I think we can trust our gut maybe more than we think. And if we see somebody who's a bit off, we got to ask, especially among our veteran community. We lose way too many every day by suicide in particular. And we say in suicide prevention program, we say better to lose a friendship than a friend. That's a concern people have of like, I don't want to badger them. I don't want to make it weird. I don't want to, it's like, I'll take the risk. I'd rather lose a friendship or make it awkward for a moment than lose a friend. And it makes it easier for people to say, yeah, I'm struggling. If we ask them first, than to have them take all those leaps. So I think that's
You're
a really
right.
helpful.
It does make it easier. And as you know, one of our kind of slogans is "Are you okay?" And
Right.
it's said a little bit differently is, when you're walking down the street or the hallway or the classroom, wherever, when you ask somebody how are they doing,
Mm-hmm.
are you generally interested in
Mm-hmm.
listening
Mm-hmm.
to what they say back to you?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's verbal words. Other times it's nonverbal cues, right? As you know, but we've all been there where we're just kind of in a rush to get to the next thing.
Sure.
The next class, I'm late for this, my next meeting, next Zoom call, whatever it is. And when you ask somebody, are you generally interested in what their response is back to you? Can you just take a second to kind of digest it and take in all those clues that they're giving you to make sure they're okay? And if you need to, follow up, even after they walk away, to reach out to them and follow up.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to summarize it. I think it is, as veterans in particular, we're well equipped to do that. We talk about situational awareness all the time. If you're in a combat zone or anywhere else for that matter, there's a degree of vigilance that's instilled just to be aware of our surroundings. And so I think we can kind of pick up on those, generalize those skills to our battle buddies and teammates on this side of military service as well, to pick up on those cues that we see that indicate something's not right.
You're absolutely right.
So, sir, I can't thank you enough for the time. I'm very, very grateful. I'm excited for all the people who might get to hear this, and for maybe the good that might come of it, the people who maybe needed that nudge to ask for help, or the people who needed that nudge to ask somebody else, are they okay, and check in with them. So we will include a link, as I mentioned, to MBS that has an enormous amount of resources available there. Suicide prevention program website that likewise has a strong database of resources, including those on campus and off. But again, from me and the rest of the veteran and military affiliated students, thank you for what you do for us on campus, and for all that this will do as well. We appreciate your time.
You bet, Tyler. Thanks for the time. Thanks for Ohio State dedicating critical resources to you and the suicide prevention program. It's absolutely clear it's making a difference. So,
thank you.